Down the field, Hollywood!
Let me think about that one.
77 yards! Whoa. Who is this kid?
Lester.
What's up, guys? We've got a very special guest today, a guy that actually, until today, I actually have never met him in real life, but we've had tons and tons of interactions, a guy that I was able to facilitate, nurture, and grow a really impactful relationship for me through social media. His name is Josh Miller. He is a husband, he is a father, he's a best-selling author, and he's also a master certified executive success coach. And he's mentored me and picked me up when I fell down quite a few times. And it's really, I'm excited to share how we were able to build a relationship having really no friends in common, really not that much in common except for the fact that he grew up in New York and I love New York. But without further ado, my wife is joining us, and I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to learn, grow, and become a favorite of this guy the same way that I have. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Miller.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here.
No, I'm excited you're here. And he actually, Josh flew down from San Francisco. And he's only in town for 4 hours just to do this podcast, to take a look at my sneaker collection, because he's also a sneakerhead.
Yeah.
And then once we get done doing that, I've got to hustle him back to the airport. But, man, I am so super thankful that you took time out of your insanely busy schedule. We're going to be able to celebrate a book launch that's coming up on almost 9 months.
Yep.
We're going to be able to celebrate that. We're going to be able to tell you more about his book. But I think the topic that I really, really want to hammer home, and I want people to make sure that when they're listening and when they're watching this, is that the major takeaway is how effective and how authentic you are at building relationships. I consider you to be a master relationship builder.
Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, building relationships, people make it into some sort of science, some formula. And I think if you really want to build a relationship with somebody, it shouldn't take that much work. It shouldn't be effort. It should be more of a free-flowing process. And, I think the people that struggle with it are people that are looking for a formula. If you're being authentic, if you're being who you naturally are, the people that are meant to be in your universe, in your sphere, they'll be there. And the people that aren't, they probably won't. And those are the times where you kind of have to make some decisions. But being a relationship builder it's not something that is taught. I really believe that people are really good at naturally connecting with people. They intrinsically, energetically, they want to meet other people. They want to do good for other people. They want other people to be happy and root for other people. And I've seen that for people in my life, and I try to do that every day for others. So.
Do you think that's something that was like innately a gift, or do you think that's something that you met or that you learned either environmentally or from your father Charlie, or like how did that go for you? Take us back to when you were younger and walk us through your process and your evolution, from growing up on the Upper East Side of New York and getting into marketing. I don't want to spoil the whole story for everybody, but you get into marketing and then all of a sudden you're on a completely different side of the country and you find yourself doing what you love. Walk us through that process.
Well, first of all, I was not a master relationship builder. As actually growing up in New York, I was arrogant. I was cocky. I thought the world owed me everything. And I walked around and I really didn't have a lot of respect for myself. And I didn't have a lot of respect for other people. And I had to learn some hard lessons. And so you had mentioned marketing. I grew up and I went to this private high school. And it was a great school, but the wrong place for me, right? Like I was surrounded by these very uber wealthy, high-driven people, and culturally speaking, it wasn't a good fit. So I struggled. I had learning disabilities. I had to hustle and motivate really just myself to get to a better place. And so you talk about building relationships. One of the things I've learned is that when I was in high school and I was around all these other types of people and influences, I had to learn how to connect with people. That was really, really important. In New York, growing up in New York, it's all about how do you know and who do you know. So you kind of learn that.
It's not what you know, it's who you know, especially in New York.
Yeah, in New York, it's all about, nobody asks you how you're doing. They say, what do you do for a living? Right? That's what everybody asks because it's all about status. So I didn't grow up in this. I had some changes in my life that taught me how to really shift my mindset and learn how to be there for people. And so you mentioned marketing. I went off and I had a really successful career at a young age in advertising, but I was soulless. I was depressed. I was not a happy individual. On paper, it looked great, making money. I was doing everything at a young, early 20s, but I was not happy. I was just not happy. And one day I was walking out of the street, and this is a true story. I wrote about it in my book, and I literally fell into coaching. A stranger bumped into me. It was around 5:15, Midtown Manhattan, knocked me straight on my ass. Well, I should say actually my nose. I broke my nose lying right there on Madison Avenue, and people are just walking by me, walking over me. I thought, people just, it's New York. They just think you're dead or whatever. And so this woman stops by and she says, "Hey, are you okay? Can I help you?" And normally,
are you like profusely?
I'm
like,
profusely bleeding, probably
like
typical
New York. You know
totally,
what I mean?
probably semi-unconscious. And the reality is that I didn't know any different. I just some impulse said, "Hey, look, you know what? You need to take this person's help." So I did, and that changed my life. This woman was an executive coach, and she worked for a company called Deloitte.
What was her name?
Her name was Susan. Excuse me, and I was about to say Cynthia because that's my wife's name. And Susan was there for me in a way that I didn't even know was possible. And when I talked to her, she basically said, "Look, I can help you. I'm a coach." And I didn't know what coaching was. And I was like, "What do you do?" And she basically I help people. I make them happier. And I was just like, "Huh, that's a thing? You can make somebody happy?" She's like, "Yeah. That's basically what I do. I do it in a corporate level." And I said, "Well, I want to learn more. Can you tell me more?" She's like, "Why don't we get you to a hospital, So I said, "Look, you gotta come with me. Come in the ambulance with me. I want to keep talking to you. Whatever it is you have, I want it." And she thought I was crazy. And
you knew that like within...
I just knew. Whatever it is she was doing is what I wanted. And so we talked.
What was she doing though?
What?
Like what was her being?
It was more of an energy. It was more of just her ability to be present and kind and generous in a way.
You had just met her.
Just met her.
So it was like obviously an instantaneous like, whoa, something's different.
Universal,
so she
cosmic.
Done anything?
Yeah, no, it's just the way she was just gracious. There was something about her that was so authentic and so real, and I had never experienced that before. And it just I gravitated towards it. And so my conversation with her then translated into her basically meeting with me the next day and saying, "Hey, look, I want to know what you did. How did you get to be a coach?" And I wrote everything down on these napkins in this coffee shop, and I have those napkins in my studio, in my office, framed to remind me of that morning. Because had I not taken her help, I would not be sitting here today.
Oh, dude, shout out to Susan.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as you're describing the way that Susan kind of like showed up as like almost like a loving, caring interruption in your life when everybody in life is passing you by and you're in need, somebody showed up in such a unique way that it completely shifted the trajectory for your life. And like in a much smaller way, but very, very similar to that. That's kind of how you and I ended up building our relationship together. Is he ended up sliding in my DM because you were looking for, you were like stale with your workouts, and you were looking for something new, something different, and we ended up starting our relationship with you reaching out to me and not asking for help or guidance on anything, but you saw some of the materials and the content that I was kicking out, and you were like, "Man, I love what you're doing. Is there any way that I can support you?" And that's how our relationship started. Is you showed up completely different than other people do when they, slide in my DM or when I meet them some certain place. It was just the language that you used was unique. The angle that you came from was very unique. And then this went on for like probably at least a full year, maybe longer than that. And then you got to the point where your book was upcoming and you were about to release it, and you said, "Hey man, I would love to be able to talk to you and see if you want to read this book and give me your feedback on it. And if you love it, I'd love to put your quote on the back of my book." And I was like so honored by that. So I ended up, obviously reading the book, and then I'm on the back cover, which I'm like so honored to be on the back of a book that I think will really, really help people. And the name of the book is like such a football terminology, you know what I mean? Because if a coach hears you give an excuse or get stuck in a story of like why you weren't able to be accountable to the team, or why weren't you successful, or why didn't you hold up the end of the deal, the football coach is going to say, well, I'm going to call bullshit.
Yeah.
And give it to you raw.
Yeah.
And really, like, that's what this book is about, is it's taking the filter off of people's feelings and giving it to them raw, and helping people to be able to call their own bullshit. And, to circle back to building relationships, that's how you and I built our relationship, is you just came in providing massive amounts of encouragement and positivity. And there were a couple instances where, you gave me some constructive criticism, but because you always came out of love and support and encouragement, when you pointed out something that I could be doing better, or possibly giving me some type of life or business advice, I took it and I accepted it and I applied it because of the way that you built the relationship up until that point. So it wasn't that you were always coming with a giving hand. It was you were coming from such a transparent, authentic place. I never had to read your messages, either phone calls or text messages, and think to myself like, oh, what is this guy trying to get from me?
Yeah.
Like, I completely took you out of that category and put you into a very, very small category of people that I know have my back. And that's why I thought it was super important for me to have you on my wife and I's podcast, because that is a lost art. The art of being like a true, authentic, vulnerable, transparent friend.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You said something before about the football, and the thing in my book is it's all about you have to do the work. Mm-hmm. There's no shortcuts.
And nobody wants to hear that.
No, and this is what I've been preaching about for 20 years as a coach. I keep saying, you can't win at life if you're losing in your mind. Think about it, right? You've got to do the work. Everybody wants to take the shortcut, and they don't. It's not sustainable. It does not last. They want
the formula.
Yeah, well, they want
kind of like you're talking about.
Well, they do. They want. This is what they're doing, so I'm just going to copy that. It's not sustainable. It doesn't work, and it doesn't. It's not rewarding. It's not.
It's kind of like motivation. Like anybody can go watch a YouTube video or listen to a podcast of somebody, spitting the proverbial fire, and people get motivated.
Yeah.
But if they're not starting their goal pursuit based upon like a really intrinsic, heartfelt why, like if their why for pursuing that goal is to like get the adoration or the acceptance of other people, that motivation is going to dry up and dwindle to the point where you don't have any motivation left, and you're left with your intention, and your intention is a fancy word for your why.
Yeah.
And if your why is not true and authentic to you,
yeah,
then that's going to dry up too, and then you're going to end up being left in the same place you were before you started that pursuit, but then you're going to be mad at yourself because you didn't achieve that goal. So like motivation like comes and goes.
Yeah.
Like true inspiration comes from like the why. Like why are you trying to pursue it? And that's why people that become successful have powerful whys, like their family or their wife, or true impact in the world.
Yeah.
And those are the people that long term always freaking win.
Yeah.
They're going to have just as many setbacks and just as many tough days as the people that quit. But the reason that they win long term is because their intention and the reason that they're doing it is so pure and authentic that it will keep you going when those tough days come, because the tough days come for everybody.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you see it on social media. You see these people that jump out of the gate and then they disappear real quick. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because they followed a formula, or their why was not authentic. It wasn't big enough. You can just see it. You can literally see. You set your watch to it, right? And people don't want to do the work. Mm-hmm. They just don't want to do the work. And the interesting thing about inspiration and motivation is that it's easy to be inspired, right? You can watch something, you can listen to us, you can get inspired. But are you motivated? See, to me, motivation is the action that comes from inspiration. You can be inspired all day long. There are people that are inspiring, but are they motivating you to take action? Mm-hmm. So I feel like you got to inspire people. There's got to be the why, and then they got to motivate. And that's the challenging part, where people don't want to do the work. They want to pay someone, you do the sit up for me, right? You do the, and that doesn't, it just doesn't work that way.
So tell me more about, like, why did you go from being at Syracuse and pursuing your career in marketing and advertising, and then you graduate and you're essentially, for lack of a better word, crushing the game for 3 years, and then you meet Susan, and she
No.
completely flips your world, right?
It is Susan. I'm thinking of his wife.
No, Cynthia.
Susan, I'm so plugged in and present for this conversation
Do
right
not,
now.
Cynthia is the wife.
Yeah. So you meet Susan
Yeah.
and completely like flips your world upside down because you meet somebody that's just so unique. How do you go from getting that inspiration, like doing well in your life,
Yeah.
career-wise,
Yeah.
but hating it and not even realizing you're hating it? Then you meet Susan, it flips your world upside down. How do you end up where you're at right now, 20 plus years of, being a master certified success coach? How do you go from meeting Susan to where you're at right now? Like, fill me in on, like, how do you leave advertising, a very lucrative job where you're doing advertisements and commercials for BMW, for Coca-Cola?
First of all, it scared the shit out of me because I didn't know. I just knew that I wasn't happy, probably a highly functional, depressed individual, like a lot of New Yorkers are, just trying to get through the day. And so I took a chance. I stepped outside of my comfort zone. I said, I don't know what it is that's calling to me, but being a coach I'm good at this. I'm good at this.
Feels right to you?
It feels right. It's just alignment, energetically, everything. And so I put in close to 90 to 100 hours a week for about 3 years while I got my certification, build up my practice so that I could then walk into that advertising agency and say, I'm leaving, I resign. They thought I was crazy. Like, no, you're not. I'm like, no, I'm
Did they think you were crazy because they didn't know that you had the side hustle of getting that certification?
Yeah, they did not know.
Or did they think you were crazy because you were so good at your job?
Well, I'd like to believe it was the latter, that I was so good at my job, they
Right.
didn't want to lose me.
That's how I experience it. When you're telling me the story,
Yeah.
like I experience it like they think I'm crazy because I'm at the top of my game.
Well, I was, but personally, I was at the lowest point in my life. The money it didn't matter. I just was not a happy individual. And coaching, I had found what made me happy. I could work with people. People would pay me money to help them. Just think about that concept for a moment. It's unheard of to me. And so people would trust me, let me into their life, and I had something to give them.
And
something
helping
to offer.
BMW and Coca-Cola didn't give you that same sense of helping?
No, because, what am I doing? I'm designing psychological marketing to get people to buy cars. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but it's not fulfilling. It wasn't rewarding on a personal level. And so when I left, they thought I was crazy, and I maybe was a little bit, but the thing that people don't know is that I struggle every day. What I tell my clients is that the only difference between me and you is that I've been working on myself longer. I've had a coach for 20 years. I've been in therapy throughout my life. I've worked on this stuff. I own my shit. I know my arrogance. I know my blind spots. I'm not perfect, but I own it, and I work on it every day. People think that if they're working on it and they have a good day, then that's it.
Then they don't need to dive deeper.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. You have to keep, every day you wake up, it's like Groundhog Day, personal development. Wake up, start over. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself. And I'm at times it sucks, but I'm a better husband, a better father, a better coach for it.
Babe, what are you experiencing when he's talking about leaving a very lucrative career to pursue something that made him feel good?
Well, that's what he did. I mean, the difference is like you were
Well,
you were
what do you
young.
mean when you say that's what he did? That's what Josh did, or that's what I did?
Well, that's what you both kind of did.
Right. Tell me more.
Well, for me, I'm just experiencing of like you were young and single and like in like that in a different phase. We were older. And so when he decided he didn't want to do it, it was more like a shock to everyone's system.
For people that are listening, babe, let's say this is the first episode that they've ever listened to. When you say that's what he did, what do you mean?
Well, so when the Giants released him, he just basically told his agent he didn't want to play anymore. Like he was done. And like I knew it was coming. He'd been in the NFL for a while and he had voiced that. But it was a huge change for our whole family.
Yeah. So, I mean, to give everybody a little bit more of the canvas portrait of what we're referring to is like we played in the NFL for 10 years, and I say we because she might not have had a jersey on, but she was playing with the ups. She was with the downs. She was even more down for, and everything in between. And we got paid a lot of money to play a kids game. I wore shorts to work every day, but the same way. in marketing, that you were crushing the game and just so unfulfilled and so unhappy with utilizing a skill that honestly just meant nothing to you. You didn't feel like you were making an impact. Was very similar to where I was at. So then when I told my agent, Drew Rosenhaus, I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to call any more teams. Like I if people call and ask me to the tryouts, like, you can call me and let me know. But unless it's the Giants or the San Diego Chargers, because my wife's dream was to live out here, like, I'm just not interested, you know, because I know it's just going to be the hamster wheel of me exchanging my time for the entertainment of other people. And granted, we're going to be paid handsomely for doing it, but like, I truly had a vision for, and I didn't even know what it was. Like you were talking about, like, well, they probably thought I was crazy. Well, my agent thought I was crazy. And I actually had a conversation with my wife, and she's like, she's always trusted my vision, but she doesn't trust my decision making. And my vision just, it never had the NFL in it, like, long term. I never thought that I was going to be one of those guys that played in the NFL for 23 years like John Carney.
Right. So here's the question I have. Because for me, it goes back to safety, right? You were safe where you were.
What, financially or just like, in general? Yeah, I mean, I was comfortable.
Right, you were comfortable and content. So how?
Are you talking about marketing? When he was marketing and advertising, he was safe.
He was safe.
Right.
And for me, that's the thing that, like, I don't know if it's different between men and women. I like to feel safe. I like to feel that, like, okay, everything's good.
Worst case scenario, we're okay.
Worst case scenario, I'm still okay. And so what type of advice do you give to somebody who's, like, on the fence of, like, I'm super content and comfortable here, but I'm not feeling complete?
It's a good question.
Yeah, there's two. It's a great question. There's two things. One is be responsible, right? Don't be irrational. This is the thing that you got a lot of people out there, who say, just quit your job and go do this and 10x this and 20x this, and you gotta take a breath. You got to really check in.
You were grinding it at both ends for a while before you ended up pulling the plug.
I
just pulled the plug.
But
granted, I had a couple more bucks in the bank because of my career.
Exactly.
But
But the thing is, you've got to, and this actually goes back to the why, right? So asking yourself, why do you want to quit, or why do you want to resign, or why?
Right.
If you can't answer that question, then you're not ready to do it, right?
Right.
And then I think the other thing is, and you brought this up, is, and I talk about this all the time, is the difference between being comfortable and being happy.
Right.
Most people don't know the difference, right? So I ask people every day, are you happy or are you just comfortable? Think about it, because most people, it's similar to the question, if I asked you to name all the things that you love in your life, when would you name yourself? At what point, right? Most people won't say their name or call themselves that.
I mean, for the longest time, like, it wasn't until probably this summer of 2018 when I've been on just like a vision quest of personal development, and it's been super difficult for me. It wasn't until this year that I would say, like, I'm in the top 5 of my priority list, because I know innately I'm a selfish person and I'm self-centered, which worked to my advantage in my goal pursuit in pro sports, or my goal pursuit as an entrepreneur, or my goal pursuits as, a speaker that can just melt the faces off of thousands of people.
Sure.
But because of that innately selfish behavioral patterns, I hurt the people that I love the most, like my wife, like my mom and dad, and the people that are closest to me that I know will never leave me. I wouldn't feed them and nurture those relationships, because I knew that they would always be there. So that's kind of like where I was in my top 5. But one question I wanted to ask you while you were talking is, because there's a difference between being unfulfilled and unhappy, and people just being like, well, I'm unhappy, so I'm just going to pull the plug and go try something else. The grass is not always greener. And so the questions that you were kind of encouraging people to ask, like, those are really important questions, because the divorce rates have never been higher, because people just pull the plug because the grass is always greener. But the grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes in life, we're at the career that we're supposed to have, but instead of worrying about the grass that's on the other side of the fence, in my opinion and in my experience, you need to water your own lawn and give that time to grow and turn green. And if there's a certain point, like, you're watering your lawn and it's still unfulfilling to you, then at that point, sell the lot, and go find yourself a new patch of grass.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I always say that if the grass is greener on the other side, to your point, stop focusing on that side. And also, sometimes it's AstroTurf.
Yeah,
right?
man, that's
No,
good.
But just
that's
think about
a good
it,
one.
right?
I'm going to remember that.
Well, because we spend so much time comparing ourselves to other people's highlights reel, and that's fabricated. Right? You don't know what that person is going through. You don't know what their struggles are. We are all dealing with struggles every day. You, me, we all are. We just don't talk about it. Some people do, some people don't.
We do on here on the Weatherford show, right, babe?
I've been talking about it all day. We're good.
So we've got our fill here, but a lot of people out there who are listening may feel like I can't show that to the world.
I think it's so powerful when you do, and honestly, like that's why this podcast and how long have we been going for 6 weeks? That's why I believe this podcast has become top 10 in the world in self-help, because we're keeping it real. And I'm not like self-promoting. I'm just like super proud of that.
I think that the thing that you have to realize too is that everyone does have the struggle, and it's okay to share the struggle, but you also have to not like stay in it.
Yeah, you can't be a
because
victim.
that's like the other thing. A lot of times people, all you hear is the negativity and like the shit, as you will, and then people start saying things like, okay, like, well, when do we see anything positive coming out of you? So there's like this constant like battle between everything, like be positive, like be happy, because what you say is what's going to be, and then you have like the fact that, well, the shit still happens, so I can't pretend that it's not.
So here's a really good one, Josh.
So,
and talking before we got on here is, and that leads me, that's a really good point that Laura's making, is something you mentioned earlier, and I actually wrote it down. It was the formula is not have, do, be.
Right.
It's be, do, have. Can you explain to that?
Yeah, so to Laura's point, people get inflated self-worth, or they think, oh my God, I got to be grateful. That everyone tells me, I got to be grateful. I got to be grateful.
I actually have been told that. Like, look at how blessed you are. Like, you should be so.
I literally was telling you that like 2 hours ago when we were like stressing about something.
But I have my whole life.
But here's the thing, and there's nothing wrong, right? It's coming from a good place. He said, hey, just be grateful for what you have. The sentiment is true and pure.
Right.
How you go about doing it is the key. And to Steve's point, we were talking about earlier, is that most people live their life in this model of, I have to do something.
Yes.
In order to, I have to buy a winning lottery ticket in order to buy a house, and then I'll be happy, right? It's the have, do, be.
Right.
And what we're talking about is flipping it, and it's more be, do, have. Be grateful. Don't do grateful. Be it. Just embody it. Look at what grateful could look like, right? Think about it. But it's hard to do. I'm talking like it's just an easy formula, but this is what
it is a formula. It is an easy formula to say.
Intellectually, yes.
It's a hard formula to
practice.
live.
Absolutely. And this goes back to doing the work. So I think gratitude and mindset and gratefulness, I mean, all that stuff is so important. There are people out there all over the world who preach about that, and it's important.
Right.
But I think it's equally important to talk about how you do it.
Right.
You can't just say, be grateful today, Laura. You deserve it. Well, okay, great. And then as soon as shit hits the fan, you're going to be like, fuck happened to my gratitude? It's gone.
Right.
Sorry, am I cursing?
It's an adult show.
All right, good.
No, but I agree with you, because there are days where I wake up and I do like the get to versus have to. Like, look at all the things I get to do today. Like, this is great, even if I don't.
And it
really
does
want
work,
to.
though.
It does work.
It does work.
But like when all this shit hits the fan,
it's too much.
It's too much, and then you're on overload, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I just want to. Then I shut down.
Babe, I want to make sure that my mom doesn't listen to this podcast. So you keep saying bad words.
It's okay. So, but I've never claimed to not say them, just so everyone knows. But like like that is where.
But I want to dive deeper before
go.
you reply to Laura, because I want to make sure that this is like, because when you said it, it like hit me in between the eyes. Like, I hope that we can get this point across. Like, that is my prayer, that we get this point across to the people listening and watching to this. So be is obviously is
being, right?
being.
It's being, not doing. We are hardwired to just do things.
So
right?
So being is number one priority.
Yeah, it's adopting the behaviors, right? It's adopting a mindset. It's not just taking action mindless. It's being intentional. It's coming from your heart more than your head. That's a being, right? When someone is truly being helpful, right? You can feel it. You can sense it. You can almost taste it. Like, but if someone's doing helpful, right? We talked about this before. That's not friendship. That's business.
Right.
Right. So being is challenging. But you know why? Because it takes vulnerability.
Because you can't do a friend, but you can be a friend.
Correct.
You know
but
what I mean?
being a friend requires vulnerability. Vulnerability and transparency, and that is not stuff that we are just intrinsically hardwired to do, right? To show up and say, hey, I'm broke, or I'm having a tough time, or my relationship or my
depressed.
job. Yeah, no one's gonna do that.
Yeah. So okay, so then
Yeah.
take us to do. So if it's be, do, have,
Well,
explain to us
The do is the action,
Right.
which is what most people they shortcut the be, they go right to the do.
And that's what I've lived my life doing. Like I want to become a professional athlete, and so I'm going to do the work.
Yep.
You know, I want to build an 8-figure online fitness business.
Yeah.
I in my mind, I need to do the work. But
Right.
but what I've been realizing in 2018 is when I show up being a certain way,
Yeah.
I don't have to like market super hard, because if I'm like authentic, people are going to trust you, and people want to have somebody that they trust,
Yep.
especially in regards to their health and wellness and mindset. Like they don't want to have to sift through whether or not they can trust somebody.
No.
So honestly, me connecting with my audience on like a really authentic, like deep, intimate level
Yeah.
is been so much, I don't want to say easier, it's been effortless.
Yeah.
Once I've kind of really, really started to work on myself the
Yep.
same way I would work on my physique or my business or,
Right.
or my physical career. So be, do, have is be the person that you want to become.
Yeah.
And then the doing.
Yeah,
And then you'll have it all after.
Correct.
Be,
But
do, have.
adopt the behaviors, adopt the mindset.
Can you give one
Study-
example of how to do that? Just
Well-
because I think that
Yeah, I'll give
No, it's perfect, because
I'm-
I want to make sure this
I'm-
is really
right,
clear,
like,
because
I'm
this is so
listening-
powerful.
I'm listening more than talking over here, but I'm just telling you that, like, I still, because I overthink everything, I just overanalyze,
Sure.
right? So it's like, okay, be grateful. So I'm going to spend so much time working on how to be grateful that you end up doing, again,
Yeah.
grateful instead of just being that.
Okay. So let me give you, I'll get back to
Practice.
that, right? Well, it is
Practice.
practice, but sometimes it has to be a forcing function. When I started my coaching career, I said, oh, I want to be the next, big coach, whatever that is. I want a 6-7-figure coaching practice. So what did I do? I was arrogant, I was swag, and I went out and I got a lot of clients because I was good at doing that. But then I made it about myself. I said, what do you want, Steve? What do you want, Laura? Okay, I'll get you there. I'll get you. Let's go. And did they reach their goals? Probably. Yeah, most of them did. Was it true transformation? No, it wasn't. And how do I know? Because within my first year, I went from having a full coaching practice, 20 clients plus, to 0. True story.
It's good feedback for you, though.
It
It's not good or
it
bad.
was
It's
so
just,
tough.
It's just feedback.
And my coach said to me, let's talk about it. And what I realized is I was not being a coach. I was not being selfless. I was not being a stand for people. I wasn't being an active listener. I wasn't being all the things that a coach needs to be. I was doing coaching.
So you were like being more like a speaker?
I was making it about me. Yeah, I was giving direction. I was telling him, do this, you're not doing that. I was
Right.
like a drill sergeant. And the universe kicked me on my ass. And I learned a hard lesson because I skipped the being part. I just did the doing because I was good at it. But it was about me. To go back to your question about gratitude, you go to church, right?
I do.
That's a perfect place to learn gratitude. For the most part, you're sitting, you're not speaking. You
Right.
have to be in the presence of other people. They're good, they're bad, they're indifferent, and you absorb that energy. And you take it in or you shut it out. So I would challenge you or anyone else in situations, when you're present, you'll know. When you're not present, you're looking at your phone or you're pushing things away. And that's how you work on the being part. Avoid the distractions. So church is a great opportunity to do that because you don't have the opportunity to.
And nobody wants you to be on your phone when you're in church.
Well, no, you shouldn't.
It's
be.
frowned upon.
Yeah, so that's a great way to build that muscle.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So
It
let's
totally
so
does.
let's shift gears and talk about how that evolution and that feedback of having a full business practice
Sure.
and then losing all of them and then getting coaching from your mentor. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, well, you were about the doing.
Yeah.
You forgot the being part, so you shift gears. How does this book kind of highlight your evolution?
Yeah.
And what can people hope to take away from reading this book?
When I wrote this book, so I say that people are like, oh, you wrote a self-help book. I said, no, it's not a self-help book. It's a self-care book. Just take care of yourself, right? You don't need help. Just take better care of yourself. This book is a culmination of everything that I've read, learned, workshops, seminars, all the stuff that's out there. I just took the things that I know that have worked for myself and for my clients. I distilled it down. I took out the complexity of it all, right? Everyone's got the frameworks, the models, and the formulas, and they're just, tell me, how do I do this, right? People don't have time to go through that. So this book is just, it's 20 years of my life. It's what works, what doesn't. And the key thing here is to ask yourself questions. I can't stress this enough, Steve. My book has 200 plus questions in it because one of the things I've learned is you've got to challenge yourself. The first thing I said on your show before is if you're losing the battle in your mind, you can't win at life. You've got to be curious. Do you know that as an adult, we ask roughly 6 questions a day? As a child, it's about 125. Think about that.
Wow. Yeah.
So at some point, we gave up. We stopped getting curious. We stopped asking ourselves questions. We got to get back to that. And that takes work.
Who's perfect for this book? Because we have a vast array of people that listen to this. We have people that, moms and dads that listen to this. We have entrepreneurs that listen to this. We have athletes that listen to this. We have teenagers. We have, we've gotten reviews from people in their 80s. So there's a vast array of people that are listening and watching this show.
Yeah.
Who was this written for?
It's for anybody who is unsatisfied in their life right now. I don't care if you're making $1 billion or you're broke, living at home. It's for people that know that they want more in their life, but they don't know how to start. They know that there's a nagging issue in their life around money, relationship, career. They don't know what to do. It's for people that are at the end that are like, I need something. Give me something that's easy, digestible, and applicable. My book, you can read it and you can apply it immediately. There's no multi-level anything to it. Read it, apply it, see what works, discard what doesn't. So anybody who's in a transition or unfulfilled, this book is for them.
That's awesome. And one thing we're going to do is when he came out with this book, we ended up giving away like 25 or 50 copies.
30.
30 copies on social media. So we're going to get another 10, and we're going to pick them randomly from people that subscribe and leave reviews on this podcast to receive one of these 10 books that we're going to give away. And we're also going to make sure that Josh has the opportunity to sign the inside copy of them and make it super special for you. And there was one other thing, and this was like super, super generous, actually. Almost discouraged him away from doing it because it's a lot of work that you're volunteering for the listeners and the people that subscribe to this on YouTube. This is a massive gift of you giving a lot of your life away just to help people, and I'm going to let you kind of get into that.
So what I want to offer up to your listeners is basically the first 10 people that sign up, that go to my website and register.
What's your website?
It's joshmiller.com/SWS.
We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes. So if you're listening to this podcast, go to the show notes and you'll find the website.
Yeah, so the first 10 people that sign up, they're going to get an opportunity to get a 30-minute complimentary coaching call with me to work on any of the areas of their lives where they're struggling. There's no sell, no bullshit, no marketing. It's just me and that individual.
Pure value.
Pure value. I will be of service to them. 30 minutes. Let's get to work and let's see what we can do.
Dude,
that's my commitment.
That's 300 minutes of your life.
It's a lot of minutes.
That's very generous, man, because you've got 2 kids. I mean, he's married. He's got 2 kids. One of them, his oldest, 6 years old, is Charlie, named after your father.
Correct.
And then you've got Hudson, who's 2.5 years old, and you've been married for how many years?
9 years.
9 years. So if
8 years, I've known it for 9.
If I made this offer on somebody else's show and I told my wife, she'd be like, I don't get enough time with you, and you just volunteered 5 hours of your life for people that you don't know. So I just want people to know.
Cynthia, I'm going to tell you, kudos to you. You're very generous.
She might not know that he made that offer.
She is my rock. I love you, and she is aware of it.
That is so cool. So
thank you.
Again, I want to thank you for making that generous gift to our listeners. So joshmiller.com/SWS, Steve Weatherford Show.
Got it,
We're actually going to change the name of our show and the cover to the Weatherford Show because my wife has agreed to be with me on nearly every episode. So it's the Weatherford Show now. It's not the Steve Weatherford Show, and I'm actually like so much more like comfortable and excited about.
Comfortable.
There you hey.
It's just like when I say comfortable, I mean comfortable because I want this show to be about the listeners.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have to feel like I need to be Steve Weatherford when I'm on here. I just want to come on here and I want to be Steve, and I want her to be Laura. And like together, it's the Weatherford Show.
Yeah.
But my whole life has been about this Steve Weatherford Show. You know what I mean?
Totally
And so
get it.
that's why I'm so proud to see this show make the impact that it's having.
Totally.
And like grow up the top 10 charts and self-help, and you know, our tribe of people that listen to this show and share it with their friends and leave amazing reviews and 5-star reviews and all that stuff. I would like to think in my mind it's because I'm not making the show about me.
Yeah.
And that's the first time in my life that I've ever had a project that wasn't about making money.
Yeah.
It wasn't about building my personal brand. It was truly, authentically, transparently, vulnerably about me facilitating amazing relationships that I've had with people like you and the other people that have been on our show, because I know their stories and their insight and their vulnerability is going to impact people in such a massive way. And that's why this show is continuing to grow like it's been continuing to grow. So I want to thank you because you flew all the way down from San Fran. Your flight got delayed this morning. We thought for a minute we're going to have to like reschedule everything.
Yeah.
We've had this plan for over a month.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge you, and I want to acknowledge your family
Thank you, man.
for making a massive sacrifice for you to come all the way down here. You came down here on your own dime. Also, and he came down here bearing gifts because he knows I'm a sneakerhead. So if you guys are watching this right now, custom made Air Max 1s, which is my favorite shoe of all time. He's actually got his on right now. And then on the back, it says SW5, which is Steve Weatherford 5. I'm not going to send him back and tell him to make it just the Weatherford Show because we shifted. But, dude, I want to thank you for your generosity. I want to thank you for the way that you showed up for me almost 2 years ago. You were a loving interruption. You know, same way that Susan was for you on the street when you were in need and your nose was busted and everybody else was walking by. You cut through the noise of all the direct messages that I have on social media with people who just want. And I'm very thankful. And those people that want, I serve them because that's why I feel like God has blessed me with the platform and the skills and the audience that I have. And so I don't want to tell people, if you want something, don't direct message me. But if you want to build a relationship with me the way that we have, slide in there with some encouragement or some positivity or like a takeaway from this show. Like it means so much to me when I see an Instagram story of somebody sharing a snippet from our show, or maybe it's a takeaway where it was like, B, do you have, man, this is so powerful and this is why, and they're sharing it with their friends. So then there's like a massive ripple effect from the sacrifice that you took away from your family and invested it into this show. And when I see feedback like that, knowing that it's impacting more than just the people that are listening, it's impacting the people that are in their life because they're actually living what you shared on here. And that's why the podcast to me has been amazing. So, dude,
listen, man, the pleasure.
You're one of the rare ones, man.
Well, you know, look, I hope more people get to know the real you.
Thank you, man.
I really do.
It means a lot.
I just, they don't know you. The more people got to get to know the real Steve. And so thank you, man.
I'm trying. I'm working on it, guys. I Call Bullshit by Josh Miller. Go to joshhmiller.com/SWS.
You got it.
To sign up for a 30-minute free coaching call, whether that's business, whether it's life, whether it's relationships. The alarm on my phone just went off, which means we have exactly 46 minutes to get to the airport so you don't miss your flight. But, dude, thank you so much, guys. If you haven't, go check this out. They sell them on Amazon. They're
Amazon, my
hard
website,
copy, and
Barnes & Nobles, everywhere.
Awesome, dude.
Got it, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, guys. Go leave a review and go to social media and give this guy some love because I am so thankful for him, and I hope you are too. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Down the field, Hollywood!
Let me think about that one.
77 yards! Whoa! Who is this kid?
Mister.